Hey guys, I hope everybody had a really nice weekend. And today, what I'm going to do, you need to complete your warm up. You guys are going to be doing a tutorial on some of the selection tools, so you're going to watch and listen to me, and then you're going to follow along. And as you follow along, I'm going to ask you to save what you do so that I can see that you've done it. And then I have a short question sheet for you to answer, just with the most important things that I want you to remember. And at the end of class, most importantly, I need you to leave me feedback on how today went. What did you understand? What did you not understand? What do you want me to go over? Because I will take your feedback and use it when I make you a tutorial for tomorrow. So every day when you log into Google Classrooms, you should see that I have changed it a little bit. I've made it so that there's a date every day, and I'll go ahead and do that now. I'll log in now so you guys can see. There's a date every single day as you log in, and you're going to go to that date, and that's where your assignments are going to be. So let me log in really quickly. What I need you guys to do is to go onto Xialinx and open up Photoshop. I already have mine open. All right, here we go. I'm just going to go into first period to show as an example. So under classwork, you now have a date. I've moved all past assignments, including warm-ups, tests, anything that we've already done, into this category called past work. So I'm still figuring out how to organize everything, but I think this is a good way to do it. I'm just going to put it into past work, and that way, if you weren't here a day or you missed it, you can catch up here. For while I'm out, I'm going to have a date. You're going to click on that day's date and click on here and complete all the assignments. So when I finish this tutorial, it's going to go right inside here. And then tomorrow, you'll have another one that'll be Tuesday, September 25th, and you'll click on that to do those assignments. All right, so let me go ahead and exit out of here. This is also where your feedback form is going to be that I need you guys to fill out. Very important. Make sure you do that for me. That way I can know exactly what it is you need me to change or adjust. All right, so you should have Photoshop open. And what you guys are going to do is you're going to open up a couple images. And since I can't access the V drive, I'm showing you, I did a screenshot before I left. Remember, we're now in the ME2 folder, so you're going to go to the V drive and you're going to go to ME2. V drive you access from right here on the file folder if anybody is forgetting how to do it. And then you're going to go to, before you get into our class folder, do you see this folder that says materials for class? That's the one you want to click on. There are two folders in there. One of them says selection tool practice. That's what you're going to use today. The other one says Mr. Produce Head. That's what we're going to use for our next project. So you don't need to go into the Mr. Produce Head. You're going to go to the selection tool practice. So go ahead and double click selection tool practice. I'm going to open it up on my end. Okay, and you have 3 pictures in there. You can do a couple things when you want to open. You can either open it through Photoshop by going to File, Open, and then choosing the pictures. Or if Photoshop's open, you can, remember, hold down the Shift key and select all your pictures at one time. And then I'm going to switch to the Move tool just so when I go over here, nothing happens. You have all 3 pictures selected at one time. Drag them into Photoshop and release, and it will open all 3 of those pictures. So it takes a few minutes for that. There we go. All right, and what I want you to do is to create a new document that we're going to play around with. So you're going to go to File, New, and this is where I want you guys to practice. Let's call this one Selection Tool and your name. You're going to change this to inches, and it doesn't matter because we're just playing around, but let's do just an 8 by 10. By the way, if you hit the tab key, it makes it so that you don't have to click it, and it'll just tab around for you. All right, I'm going to change this. I am going to change this to CMYK color and a white background. And then when you're ready, just click OK. All right, so here we go. I have my tools over here. Adjust anything you want to adjust before we get started. Let me move that out of the way. That's annoying. Okay, and I'm going to focus on just a couple tools. Those tools would be, I'm going to change this to where you probably see it. Yours probably looks like this, so I'm going to adjust it like this. We're focusing on the lasso, the magnetic lasso, but then we're also going to focus on the quick selection tool today. All right, so the first one that I want to show you go ahead and just select your move tool to make sure that you're not doing anything that gets in your way. And I want you guys also to open your history. My history is already open, but if you go to Window and you select History, this is a good thing, because if you get to a point where you're not sure what happened, you just don't know. It's like, oh, well, I was following along and everything went well, and then you're not sure what happened. You can go back to your history. This shows you every single step you do the entire time you're working. And so you can click and go back to any spot that you want. All right. Now, by the way, we've called this selection tool with your name, but we haven't saved it yet. So let's go ahead and save it. Go to File, Save As. And I would like you guys to save this inside your student folder. I can't access that because I'm not on the network where right now while I'm recording this, but go into the V drive, go into the ME2 folder, go into our class folder, and then inside your folder, save this this project. Okay, so save it as a PSD folder and just click Save. All right, so we are going to look at a couple of these tools. Most of you have fiddled around a little bit with this with your collage, but I may not have told you everything about those tools, and you certainly didn't get into the ones down here probably. Let's start with the eyeball up close. All right, so just click on the one that says eye up close, and we're going to choose, let's start with the lasso tool. All right, now I know I told you guys how to use the lasso tool briefly. Just do this with me as I do it, and you can pause this anytime you need to pause. So when you do the lasso tool, you can obviously just select an area and it selects it, okay? What you may not know is that there's a way to add to or take away from. So if you hold down the, let's say I want to take away this area right here. I don't think that really looks good and I want to get rid of it. I'm going to hold down the Alt key. You see that minus that appears? I'll do it again. Here it is. See that minus? That means that whatever you select, it takes away from, just like that. If you hold down the Shift key, it means that whatever you draw, it will add to. Okay? So minus takes, or Alt is minus, and it takes it away. Do that again. Shift is it gives you a little plus sign, and that adds it to. Okay, so this is a good one if you just want to select a large area and refine it later. So let's say that I want to hold down the Shift key and I want to actually select a good chunk of this eye. This is very fast. This is like just doing a really rough cut of it. Go to your Move tool and move this into our practice document. Here we go. And you'll notice that it created a new layer over here. If this was artwork that you were working on, you might want to double click it. Let's just practice, double click it and call it eye. Okay. And now it's on its own separate layer. If I click the visibility icon, I can see that it goes on and off. All right. This tool, the lasso tool, is great for a quick selection. It's also great if you just want to add a little something, but once you bring it over, normally then I would switch to like the eraser tool and I would erase it away. So if I right click and choose a bigger size, I can go in and start just erasing away what I don't want. Okay. Now, one thing I want to make sure I point out to you guys is that you can choose your eraser mode, brush, pencil, block, and see what that looks like. Let's say we pick brush mode. You can choose how soft or fuzzy it looks like. See, this gives it more of a faded or a soft look to it. You can change the opacity so that it only erases a little bit of it and not all of it, depending on how much you chose. This one right here, let's see if it'll hover over it. It gives you a little bit different of an effect. It just changes the radius around your brush or your pencil. And the flow. This is an airbrush. If you want to play around with this, you can get a different kind of feel with that as well. All these there's so many different aspects to each of these tools that, you know, as an artist, you'll come up with one or two tools that you really like, and then you'll learn how to tweak all of these. So if you want to take some time to play around with it, you can take some time to play around with it. that is how you would take the eraser tool and help you. Now there's other options you've probably noticed inside the eraser tool. So if you can either click and hold here, or you can right click and it brings up the menu. Right click is a little bit easier. There's something called a background eraser tool. I'll show that to you in the next one when we do the fish. There's also the magic eraser tool. And what this does is it's looking for pixels. So when you click it, you're telling it, like right up here it says 32, that's the tolerance. That means that it can erase 32 pixels of similar colors. So, and this right here, this shows you kind of how it does it with the pixels. So if I click on a color like the blue of the eye, it's going to erase away 32 pixels that have that same blue in it. That's what that means, okay? So the magic eraser tool is great if you have like a really strong color against another color, but you can tell like sometimes it's not the best. This is a cool effect, like if you were going to put a picture to show through this, using a tool like this that kind of gets rid of certain colors, and then you had another picture underneath of it, like for instance, let me just bring this model over really quickly, just to give you an idea. I'm going to make her bigger. Edit, transform, scale. Let me hold down the shift key. I'm going to make her larger. Move her right there in the eye. And I want her to be underneath the eye. So see what I mean? If you used that tool to erase part of the eye away, it's kind of cool because you can get that to show through. So just some neat effects that you can do with the eraser tool that maybe you wouldn't do otherwise. It gives it like a really artsy kind of feel to that. She's peeking through the eye. It's kind of fun, okay? All right, so try that. If you didn't get a chance to try it, go ahead and do that now. And then what we're going to do next is I want to show you some of the other tools as well. So I'm going to get rid of my eye layer. I don't really want to keep it. I'm just going to drag it into the trash can and it's gone. And I'm also going to drag our model into the trash can for the time being. We're going to switch to the magnetic lasso tool. So in the magnetic lasso tool, I'm going back to the eyeball, and you see that you have these little marching ants, which are, that tells you, I call them marching ants because that's what they look like, little marching ants. But this right here tells you what you have selected. Okay, so this tells you what you have selected, and we want to do a new selection. So in order to get rid of it, we need to do deselect. And what you can do is hold down the Control key and D, and it's deselect. So Control D is for deselect, and it gets rid of your selection and that goes away. The other option for that would be to have select deselect. So you could do select deselect or Control D for deselect. All right, I want to show you the magnetic lasso tool, and that is the same place as the lasso tool. You just right click, or you can press and hold and you can choose the magnetic lasso tool. What that does is it sticks to pixels, just like a magnet. So as I drag this around, it is picking what it thinks I want it to choose, and it's sticking to it. This is one of the best ways if you're just gonna, if you really want you want to be particular about your selecting, this is kind of a nice way to do it rather than doing just a random lasso. It's either like you can do a random lasso selection and then clean it up with the eraser tool, or you can be particular up front and you don't have as much cleanup to do afterwards. So looking at this, I can see that I've got some areas in here that I really want to select a little bit better. So I am zooming in. Remember, Control plus zooms in, Control minus zooms out. Or you can use your magnifying glass. I'll show you this one right here will zoom in as well. Okay, so I have part of the eye that it didn't select. So this is where I would go from the magnetic lasso tool to using the lasso. You could hold down Shift and it will allow you to add more to it. But at this point, once I've done this selection, I like to switch back to the lasso tool because it gives me a little more freedom on my end to add. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and then I'm just going to come in here and select this. Okay? So that's where you would use like a combination of both the magnetic lasso and regular lasso tool. And then again, to bring it over, you just switch to your move tool, drag it up, don't let go, bring it back down. And I want to go back to this eyeball for a second because I want to show you something. All right, so this is already selected. If you have something that's selected, you can, sorry guys, I hit a button that I did not mean to. That actually looks really, really cool, but that was not what I intended to do. So I'm going to go back to my history and go back to this lasso. I added a fill into the eye. Whenever something's selected, just like what I just did, when you do something to it, when you tell Photoshop to do something to it, like add a filter, let's say I'm going to emboss this eye. What it does is it only does it in the area that you have selected, okay? I'm going to go back in my history. See, I'm in my history. I'm going to go back to lasso and get rid of that. So take a minute and play around with adding a filter to it. Filters can be really, really fun. Let's see, I'll do ripple and see what it looks like. You can adjust. There we go. That looks a little more like water. That's kind of a cool effect for this one. And if I wanted to see what it looked like without the marching ants, I could Control D or Select Deselect. And that's a really fun look for this eyeball. So go ahead and try adding a filter to the center of this eyeball. And then let's move this over into our selection tool. And we can see the difference. It's kind of fun. So now we've got a ripple eyeball and a regular eyeball, and they're both staring at us like a pair of eyeballs. Kind of creepy. Okay? All right, so the selection tool, the reason that you use these selection tools, you can cut out things from a picture into another picture. You can select an area so that it only affects what any filter or effect that you do only affects that one particular area that you selected. And that's the main purpose of the selection tools. All right, I do want to show you this one over here. That's a fish. So do Control plus to zoom in. Now, this is not, I got the more pixelated version of this, and I can't go back and change it because I can't add it to the V drive from where I am. But I do want to show you the quick selection tool. So the quick selection tool, if you're on your fish, and that's the fourth tool down. And remember, if you ever wonder if you hover, it tells you what it is when you hover over something, and then you'll know what it is. Quick selection tool does this. And you can change it by how many pixels you want it. I'm going to change it a little bit larger, so I'm at 25 pixels. It quickly selects an area that it thinks you want it to select, and it's very fast. But this does not always work well, and I'll show you why. So, okay, of course, when I'm trying to show you, it does it. But the top of this fish's head is almost the same color as this background. So sometimes if you have a really large pixel selection, it will select some of the background as well. And with this picture, it's really easy with a quick selection tool because the background's completely black, and then this is so bright that it's very easy for the program to understand that you want to select this fish. And so then it's a very quick, very efficient way to select this fish. Oh, look how small it is. Hello, little fish. In here, it's a very quick, efficient way to select it and move it over. I'm going to make mine bigger. Edit, transform, scale. Hold down the shift key. This one's going to be probably pretty pixelated. There we go. Now we have a fish swimming in here. The cool thing is you can make this eyeball really large and put the fish inside the eyeball, and that would be a fun design. Maybe we'll do that in just a minute. Okay, so let's go to the model and try the quick selection tool. I'm going to zoom in, Control plus. And I'm going to go to quick selection tool, and let's see how it works when you choose like the model's face. So far not bad, but look, it went all the way up underneath the eye, and maybe that wouldn't have been an area that you wanted to do. Also with quick selection tool, you don't have to hold down shift or anything like that. It just does it for you. See how this isn't the best tool for something where your tones are all kind of the same. It's easy with a fish because the background was black, but in this area there's not a lot of contrast between, colors. You've got really dark shades, and you've got skin tones, and you've got lips. So if I do Control D to deselect, it would select the lips pretty easily. But you see that how it goes off here into the skin, because the skin tone is pretty similar to the tone of the lip, or her lipstick. You could switch down your size to like 13 pixels instead, and do Control D to deselect and try it again this time. Now it's not going to select as wide of a distance, and that just makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to take her lips and bring them over. It's not a perfect, oh wow, they're really teeny lips when they move over. I'm going to edit, transform, scale. That is so small. And make those larger. And they're so pixelated when you bring it up. But it's just fun, and we're just playing, and you're getting some ideas on what to do. Okay, so now what we want to do, I've showed you quick selection, I've showed you magnetic lasso, I showed you regular lasso, and the eraser tools. I did want to show you the, where is it? Eraser, here we go. I did want to show you the background eraser tool. So in order to do that, let's go to our fish document. This is a little bit easier one for it to select, and we're going to do Control D. And we want to bring this whole picture of the fish over. So I'm going to grab the fish and drag it into our document. I'm going to go to Layers, and I just, for the time being, want to turn off the visibility of the rest of these layers so I just see this one. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Scale, so that I can make it larger. There we go. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom in, Control Plus, and I'm going to show you the background eraser. So if you choose background eraser tool, what it does is you are telling it, like, it knows that you're looking to get rid of a big chunk of the background of a picture. So for now, because this is a black background, it works pretty quickly. I don't have a very large area, so I can make this much larger. And what this is most useful for is, like, if I click it here, okay, it's frozen. There we go. Because I had such a large pixel range, it got rid of a ton. But I want to do that again and show you where it's helpful if you're trying to work certain areas. So what I'm going to do is go back to my history, and I'm going to go back to where I brought it over. And so if I just have like 36 pixels selected and I choose, it's a really small spot. I'm going to up it a little bit more. By the way, right click anywhere on the screen and it brings up this menu. If you are next to, like, the fish, here's where it comes in handy. If I am next to the fish, let me make it even larger, and I click this, and let's say it overlaps the fish a little bit. See how my circle overlaps the fish, but the plus is on the background? When I click that, notice that it does not get rid of the fish. It just gets rid of my background, which is pretty great, okay? It's not perfect, but this is a tool that can come in handy sometimes when you just want, like, you're working to get rid of the background around an object. Sometimes this works a little bit better than doing a manual erase. Although it's not perfect, I don't love this tool for this reason. I'm going to switch to Move Tool, and I'm going to zoom in, Control Plus. You can see that it, if you're not careful, comes in and gets rid of part of what you don't want, and it also sometimes makes decisions and erases lightly on an area because it thinks that you want to keep it, but it wants to fade it out, so it's a gentle, erase, and I don't love that. So for me, this isn't something that I love. I don't use it that often, but there are particular situations where it comes in handy. All right, back to our layers, and we can turn these back on. And let's do this. I'm going to get rid of my lips, goodbye lips, drag it in the trash. I am going to get rid of this mess of a fish, goodbye fish, get rid of that. I'm going to keep the eyeballs because I think that's cool. And let's play around a little bit with opacity and putting things inside of things, okay? So let's say we want to keep our fish, but we want to make it swim inside the eyeball. Here's something that you may not know. If you hold down the Alt key, and you click on the fish and move it over, it makes an exact copy. So anytime you want to make a copy of an object, and it also makes a different layer, it tells you it's a layer 3 copy, it will copy anything on that layer just by holding the Alt key and moving it over a little to the right, which is pretty nice. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go to Edit, I'm going to go to Transform, Scale, and I want to make this fish a little bit smaller, Enter to set it, and I'm going to have it swim inside this eyeball. So I'm going to Control Plus to zoom in. I'm going to shift over a little bit. And let's play around. I love the way the ripple filter looks on this eye. It's really cool. So I'm going to actually make my fish even smaller now that I've zoomed in. Transform, scale, hold down the shift key, make it even smaller. I distorted it a little bit there. Anybody saw that? See that? I'm going to hit enter. And what I want to do is I want to drag this underneath the eyeball layer. Let me see, my eyeball layer is right here. There's my fish. So I want to take and I'm going to play around with the opacity. If I change the opacity down, I can see that fish through. Or I can switch it around and make my fish go back on top of the eyeball like before, but I could fade the opacity of my fish a little bit. Oh, sorry, I'm still in the eyeball layer. Where's my fish? There it is. I could fade the opacity of my fish a little bit so it blends like it's swimming inside. There's other options for working on things. You can change up here the look of a layer. So if you do normal, dissolve, darken, multiply, color burn, they all have different effects. So take a moment. I'm going to put this back up. I'm still on my fish layer, and if I put screen, it brightens it. It doubles the light. If I change it to multiply, it darkens the fish. If I change it to dissolve, that kind of pops it out a little bit more, which is a cool look. You can play around with all of these. Color burn messes with the color. Lighten will lighten it. So anytime you change a new one, anytime you change to a new one, it's not permanent. You're just playing around with all of these. In the end, go back to normal and you've got it where you want it to be with normal. Okay guys, so hopefully at the end of this tutorial you have learned how to use the lasso tool, the magnetic lasso tool, how to add to a selection, how to take away from a selection. You've learned about the quick selection tool, and you've learned about the eraser tool, the background, the magic background eraser tool, and just how to change your brush size and work that into it. So all of these skills are what we're going to use for our Mr. Produce Head for our next project. Okay, so please, please, please remember to leave me feedback at the end of class today. Tell me what you understood, what you didn't understand. Tomorrow's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to start your Mr. Produce Head. And remember, if you want to get a head start at looking at the images that are going to go for your Mr. Produce Head, it is in the V drive outside our class folder. It is under Materials for Class, Mr. Produce Head. You can look at those pictures, but please be careful not to adjust them or do anything to them, because we need those for all my classes for everybody to use for this project. All right, that's it. Hope you're having a great day. Leave me feedback, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.